guys, Saf here with another Raid Shadow Legends video, and I want to thank my community member Lewser for actually sharing his account so I can play test the boosted upgrades to Siegfrund the Nephilim. He is a mythical champion, one of the first sets of mythical champions we had. Actually, Hell Hades mythical champion, which is quite ironic. He had a major boost in the latest patch where it boosted his damage up significantly. So we're going to have a look at his damage. We're going to look at where you can use him, do a bit of a champion guide on Siegfrund the Nephilim. We're also going to be able to test a full strength Siegfrund outside of empowerment, which, you know, it's a nice amount of stats, but it's not the end of the world. We have a 6-star Siegfrund here. Lewser was fortunate enough to get it in the boosted summons, so he's having a lot of fun with this ability. But you can see we've got a full build. This is an end game Siegfrund. This is the maximum potential you can probably get with him. We're going to do a bit of a skill breakdown here now. And with mythical champions, this is kind of the first mythical champion guide I've done. It takes a long time to understand what you have in this skill set, because you have two champions in one, essentially. Now, with Siegfrund, it's a bit different. The one complaint people had with Siegfrund was you can't really metamorph him, right? His metamorph is not like all other mythical champions. You can't just change form. He will only change form if he is the final living ally in a team. And to be honest, that was what we kind of hoped they would fix in the update. A way to sort of get rid of this problem so that I can metamorph whenever I want. Because in his metamorph ability, it becomes more of a support type Cardiel Duchess-esque champion, which is what we, you know, sometimes you might really want him just to be always in that form. You don't really get the option with this update. You still have to be the last living ally when you're killed to be able to metamorph. But let's take a look at his skills. So we have an A1 here, attacks one enemy 2 times. The first hit transfers all debuffs from this champion to the target. The second hit then increases the duration of all debuffs on the target. It's kind of really strong. It's really good if you think of stuff like Dragon, where you take those poisons, you just send it back. It's simple. And you extend the duration once you've sent it back, right? Because it's 2 hits. So you send it all back and then increase the duration. Things like Amius, you could send back things like the heal reduction that he creates if you have continuous heals to make him like a pseudo heal reduction champion. Very cool way they've set it up to send it back, then extend it. Then we have the A2 Seraphic Wave here. Attacks all enemies. Each critical hit fills this champion's turn meter by 25%. So if you critically hit 4 enemies in arena, that's basically 100% turn meter back. It will reset the cooldown of Rage of the Nephilim, which I think is his A3. If he kills someone, it will also reset the cooldown of all of this champion skills if this attack kills 2 or more enemies. So you can just AoE constantly. It's quite insane. Then we come to the passive. I'm gonna do the A3 last because that's the main skill we want to talk about here. But the passive, if this champion is about to be killed, he will block the hit. There was some confusion around this text with other champions, specifically White King Narcissus. People didn't realize that a block's incoming damage is effectively the same thing as reduces incoming damage by 100%. The word block is misleading. It makes it sound like it's the block damage buff. It's not. So what this means is Narcissus will ignore this passive. Karate will ignore this passive. Things that ignore damage reducing passives, this ability will not stop, because blocking incoming damage is the same thing as having 50% less incoming damage. It's essentially coded the same way. So aside from Narcissus, he should basically mean that if he's about to die, he won't die. He will place block damage instead. So he won't take any damage. It will place block damage. Then he will heal him by 50% and fill his turn meter by 100%. Now, this is where the core fantasy loop of his metamorph is meant to come into it here. It's meant to be designed to go into like that AoE one-shot like a Baron. And if everyone is about to die, then he won't die, and then he will place this block damage, fully heal, get a turn meter, metamorph, and then you can go into the second form in metamorph and revive everyone. That's kind of the concept, but all you really have to do is just hit him once so that he procs this passive, and then he can never really metamorph because it's unlikely he's going to be the last remaining ally. Now, it is a 2-turn block damage, but there are far too many abilities in the game that ignore block damage. Things like, I think Rotus ignores block damage, Baron ignores block damage, Jorgid. There's just far too many things that blocks damage. Wukong will be able to remove it. There's lots of different things like that. Now we're going to come to the star of the show, Rage of the Nephilim. This is the ability that a lot of people will be talking about right now. This is the big thing that got boosted. This did get its damage boosted. This is the one that had its major damage boosted. It attacks one enemy. The new thing they have added is it ignores 50% of the target's defense. It will then attack all enemies with any surplus damage if the initial target is killed, and it will fully heal this champion if you kill the initial target. It is a little bit like Wukong. Wukong's sort of Staff of Wonder, again, attacks one enemy, is basically the same thing in terms of the way that it's coded. The big difference is the damage multiplier. So with Wukong's ability, the A2 is a 5 times multiplier, and this used to be a 5 times 4, a 5.4 times multiplier. They have boosted it now to a 6 times multiplier, but the other big thing you need to consider is his base attack. He has 1663. If we compare that to Sun Wukong, it is a 1586, so he has a higher base attack, he has an extra 1 times attack multiplier, which makes this ability the second hardest hitting ability in the game for Arena. I'm just, by the time this video comes out, the damage ratings are probably going to be out on the website. The math now is saying that Little Miss Annie is kind of like the number one. There's a couple of like 100% ignored defenses like Shamael, I think Royal Huntsman, and I think people like Tormin, if you get the right setup. Those will obviously overpower this because they're dealing true damage. Other than that, this ability is the one that does the most damage. It is absolutely insane. And we're going to see that in a couple of the examples. So that's kind of his base form. He's pretty much now a damage dealer in his base form, a very strong nuker. That is kind of like what his job is. Yes, there's a little bit of debuff transferring, but it's really about these two abilities, absolutely annihilating the enemy and then being able to stay alive. Now, if you do happen to transform him, they did make a few changes here. You get this passive damage taken from skills by 20%, so he will take a lot less damage. You get a very, very, very strong revive. Revives all allies with 50% turn meter and block damage for 2 turns. They changed this to be all allies. It used to just be all allies except him. Now it's just all allies on a 4-turn cooldown. You also get a full cleanse, a 30% heal, and a block debuff. This is like Cardiel a little bit without the revive on death. And then a A1 attacks all enemies, heals by the amount of damage inflicted. So he becomes much more of a supportive type role. And whilst the second form is quite good for the revive, honestly, that's not what you want him for. You want him for this A1 ability. It does just so much damage. So let me show you how Lewser here has got him built. He is obviously fully 6-star awakened, so he's going to get significant stats. Now, mythical champions, they get a lot from a blessing. They get more than legendaries. You can see they're getting 150 more attack. They're getting 7% more crit damage. They're getting more speed. He's getting so much stats from this 6-star. It's obnoxiously strong. Mythical champions gain a huge amount from souls, so it's a lot of damage extra on top. We've also got his mastery tree set up here. He's gone for Helm Smasher. He has gone for Ruthless Ambush. I probably would not go for that. I'd probably go for Whirlwind of Death. But I will say that Ruthless Ambush will improve his A3 damage because it's all about getting as much damage as you can on that. I'll explain how you can maximize that. It's the same way you would do it with Wukong. He's gone for then Methodical. Again, potentially you might want to go Blood Shield just for some HP because he will get a lot of HP from his blessing here. Pretty good sort of mastery tree. This is kind of like what you want to do. Now, the build he's got him in here is a lethal crit damage build with a reaction ring, which is great. Ideally, you want as much reaction as a mythical piece here. Not the best, but I guess he's just taken the crit damage with a little bit of attack. It is a triple roll essentially because it's a mythical with attack, so that's pretty good. And then we have a banner here. He's got a triple speed with attack. It's as good as it's going to get here. He's got the right ascensions in the right spaces here. Attack, attack, attack. This is what you want to see. Attack percentage, crit damage. This is almost perfection in terms of ascension. The ascension is right on, but then when you look at the artifacts, they're not crazy strong. You know, speed, this is basically good rare sets. These boots, he's got 2 rolls on a resistance here. That's absolutely useless to him, but he's taken it because it's, you know, it's an attack percentage boot with double crit rate. It's as good as it's going to get for, probably in terms of this build. So these pieces here, this gear is not what I would call giga strong. It's good gear. It's very high quality gear. What is making it giga strong is the fact that he's put time and effort into this attack build. So the stats we've got here is a 8.6k attack, 325% crit damage, 250 speed. If this build was on a Kraken endgame, you would expect to see another 100 speed with these types of stats. That is how strong endgame gearing is now. Obviously, there's no empowerment here and also no faction guardians because it's a mythical champion, so they miss out on those benefits. So those are the stats we've got here. Let's take them into an arena fight. Now, I did this little test before we actually got into recording this. I just picked a team here, right? So I picked this team. I wanted to see what it can do to this team. There's no increased attack in my team here, so there is literally no source of damage or anything else here. So we can boost it up here. So no increased attack, nothing at all, just to strengthen. And this is the ability you want to use. Now, what you really need to do to make this valuable is the surplus damage. It's all going to be about excessive damage, as in how much damage left in the ability after I've killed a target. So that means you always want to pick on the squishy targets, because if you're going to hit for 100,000, an enemy with 20,000 HP, well, now you've got 80,000 damage to spread to all enemies. So what you really want to do is try to pick on squishy targets here. So we could absolutely go for the polymorph. We could go for the Lydia. I'm going to go for the Lydia. Let's see what happens. So 380,000 spread. If that wasn't polymorphed, that would have been a kill. We broke one stone skill, and then we just come in here and absolutely kill it. If that wasn't polymorphed, we would have absolutely destroyed that Taras. Now we just got to try and get back through here, because obviously stone skin is always going to stop him. This isn't an issue with the new Siegfrund. This is the issue with stone skin. It will always stop you from being able to deal damage. Right, we can go back in here. We can basically just finish them off with an A1. Now it's just a case of getting back around to his abilities, but we can probably finish them off here. But you know, that's the strength now. Let me see if I can find another build. Let's try a Marichka Taras team here. We've got Mithrala. We've got this. Now, the only thing is there is a 6-star polymorph on the Siphi. So I'm going to take out the Siphi at the moment, because I'm certain that this Taras will get polymorphed if we put him in here. I'm just going to use something like, let's just use a, I don't know. Let's just use an Ophidius. Good old Ophidius. I don't just throw in Ophidius here. We'll see what happens. They're probably not going to be faster than me, just because of the way that this team is set up. So we can test this now. So as I said before, we want to target squishy targets. These are all quite tanky targets, but I'm actually going to try and see what we can do to a Mithrala over here. No increased attack. Didn't kill it. Okay, so that's good to know. So we still need, obviously, ideal setup here. We're going to get the revive back in here. Sometimes you get a cooldown. Taras did absolutely no damage to this team. And then we can actually follow up here. So you kind of do still need, he's still an attack-based champion. So you absolutely still want to have, if you can, increase attack. It's not the end of the world if you don't, but you absolutely want to. Obviously, White King Narcissus here is dominating. But you can see it did hit for a decent amount of damage. He doesn't ignore shields either, so Bolster will be a pretty hard counter to him. Now let's try and find a team and actually put an increased attack on him. Let's see what he can kind of do. Now, one word of caution, he is magic. So trying to kill Ultimate Death Knight, probably going to be an impossibility. So that is something to keep in mind, that he's not really an Ultimate Death Knight counter, and Ultimate Death Knight will kill him. And obviously Harima's passive will reduce the amount of ignore defense. So if he's ignoring 50% plus the lethal, which is 25%, he's going to ignore like half of that. So that's going to reduce his damage output significantly. So let's try it with an Arbitus-led team here. I've just changed out and taken out the White King Narcissus. We'll bring Siphi back in, because that is Lewser's fastest champion. Let's see if we can break through this really strong, typical builds that you see now. Harima, Ultimate Death Knight, and Sun Wukong. For some reason, this Ultimate Death Knight is not in Stone Skin. I'm not entirely sure why. That should be standard practice, but we can absolutely lock people out here. This is kind of like what you expect. And now it's kind of like, this is where I was saying I would absolutely pick on Wukong. Why? Because of the amount of excess damage you're going to do. But Ultimate Death Knight, what does he do? He transfers the damage. I always forget this guy does this. It's quite frustrating. He will struggle into this. If you cannot get rid of that Stone Skin of Ultimate Death Knight, he will struggle into that kind of combo here. Now, fortunately, we have a second AoE. His A3 may be single target, but his secondary is an AoE, so we can boost to get to a turn. And then we can obviously absolutely destroy them. 81,000. We had 2 kills, so we've now reset our A3. So we could just sleep the Duchess here, make sure she can't take a turn. We know Sun Wukong likes to keep coming back alive. But we've reset our ability, so now we can go again. And this is where it's going to hit for lots of damage. 83,000, pretty good damage. But like I mentioned, Harima, this is probably going to be the worst type of fight to run him into, because Harima will absolutely slow his damage down. You will absolutely lose a good chunk of damage from his A3 from Ultimate Death Knight, but we still were able to clear it through. Let's try against a typical speed team here. This will be the last one I test in Classic Arena. Let's try it against here. So again, we can boost really fast Siphi. I think Lewser Siphi's over 400 speed, which is crazy. We can lock him out. So again, we can pick what we want. Now, Trunders tend to be quite tanky. I'm going to go for the Kai'Ma or the Arbiter because they tend to be quite squishy. Trunders have a lot of base HP. Let's see what we can do. 275,000, 700,000, 400,000. That's the excessive damage, because what you've got to remember about the secondary hits, it takes the raw damage that is left over from your first hit, then remultiplies it. The thing with Sun Wukong's excessive damage, it doesn't crit. As far as I remember, it doesn't crit. I need to double check this. So the second attack with Sun Wukong, the surplus damage, cannot crit, which means you can't remultiply it. That doesn't mean you can't re-add things like book bonus damage, mastery bonus damage, any sort of weaken bonus damage, right? These secondary multipliers can still happen. It's a bit like how Trunder's A2 works. You multiply the first hit, then it does extra damage, and then you multiply the second hit again, so you get twice the amount of crit damage. Well, the only thing that Sun Wukong doesn't have is he can't reuse his crit damage, but he can reuse his masteries, his books, his extra bonuses, weaken, protection sets, all those will come into it here. It's just not the crit damage. Siegfrund does not have this problem. Siegfried's secondary attack will crit twice. So if you put 400% crit damage on him and you kill one target, then it's going to deal 800% bonus crit damage, because the first attack had 400%, the second attack will get another 400%. That is why you're seeing such a big difference between the first hit, which was only 275, and the second hit, which was 480, because effectively the second hit is doing double the amount of damage because of the fact you can crit twice. You can have double the amount of book bonuses. So we look here, he gets 20% damage bonus. The second hit will get another 20%. It will get another set of mastery bonus. It will get another set of protection bonus. That is how this thing works. So the larger the raw damage that's left over, the bigger that multiplication effect can apply to the secondary thing. So he is probably now the number one nuker for AoE clearing in this game, apart from when you fight the ultra high end, which means that when you get into this platinum tier meta, you're still going to be fighting all these crazy ones. Galath is in here, I don't really know why. You're still going to be fighting a lot of the same types of teams in terms of heavy mythical teams seem to be making a much more presence now. People are getting their hands on these champions. 4-star Lazarius, Pando's absolute crazy Lazarius here. But Siegfrund will be able to come in and absolutely dominate with the amount of damage. I have seen Siegfrund's hit for about 4 million on that A3. It is absolutely insane. Now, in terms of other content, well, he's an excellent wave clearer. He will absolutely destroy a wave. Like if we take it into, say, Dragon here, I'm not going to try and use too much. Let me see if he's done his Ice Golem. If not, we can just test it in his Ice Golem run here. Oh, he's done his Ice Golem, that's fine. So we can just test it in, say, the Dragon layer for now. He did say I was okay to use some energy. Sorry, Lewser. So this is the team he normally runs. We can absolutely just say, well, we're not going to use Seer anymore. We don't really care about this. All we're going to do is we're going to bring in Siegfrund, and we're going to basically, I mean, he doesn't even need a reset because he will reset his own ability on A2. So we could drop this. We could probably bring in something like, let's bring that Lydia back, just so we always ensure the A2 on the second wave is going to be good. And then we just need an attack buff in this team, ideally, right? You always want to pair him with an attack buff. He's an attack-based champion. We can absolutely run him with something like an Arbiter or a Duchess if we wanted to. Let's just run it like this. So this is the other value of having such a powerful ability. You can absolutely dominate the wave clearing here. So we'll boost him up here. I don't really think we need to run any sort of decreased defense and weaken here. We will need it for the secondary ability. So what I want to do is this. I absolutely want to try and knock the HP of this target down. I need to minimize the HP as much as I can. And now I can absolutely do that. We didn't kill. That's the only downside. If you don't kill, you don't get what I was trying to go for there. So we probably needed a bit of a decreased defense to get this through. Now, these waves are much harder than any wave in hard mode dungeons. This is the hardest dungeon wave in all the hard mode dungeons. So if it could one-shot this wave, it can one-shot all the rest. Like Fire Knight is much easier than this. But we can come in here and reset our abilities if we were to kill. We've got an extra turn, so we can go here. So we've got turn meter, and then we get that AoE. There was it, 1.4 million. That was what I was trying to set up here. 1.4 million, absolutely insane. So we need to cycle some abilities here. Let's just go back through. These waves are not a problem to us. So I'm trying to weaken this ability here so that we can make sure we get a turn. Obviously frozen. Now, we will get a turn meter. There's 5 enemies, so every time we critically hit, we'll get 25% back, so we'll get 125% turn meter here, which is why we're getting the extra turn. And now we can follow up with a big hit. We can either go for the Venus or the Chagors. I'll try and take out the... I don't want to take the Frozen because I'm going to lose 25% of my damage. Let's take out this Chagor here. 388, 451. This is how you can use him in PvE content. If you can set it up correctly, mine's pretty scuffed here. I'm not very knowledgeable at what Lewser's got in his account. You can absolutely just destroy targets. Now, when it comes to a single target, he's not great against bosses, but he's still pumping 200k here against this boss, which is, you know, reasonable. There's that transfer income going on. So because of the transfer effect, we were able to extend the durations of poisons. So for Dragon, he probably has significant value. We can just put a decrease attack on here, boost this up. And now we're back to this A1 here. Great. We could have A1 to extend the duration of poisons even further if we wanted to. We can boost. Now let's have a look at what his damage can be on the A3 here if we have decreased defense and weaken up. We should be able to get a turn. Let's see what it can do. 737,000. Now he is getting 25% bonus damage from the Awakened Weakness because he's 6-star, but the damage output from Siegfrund here is crazy good. We'll watch the extension now. We didn't actually do it because we have no accuracy. I forgot about this. You need accuracy for it. Of course you do. The extension, you probably the transfer you don't, but the extension you do. But look how much damage he's done. Siegfrund, well, he can be an absolute PvE monster. The other place you could possibly want to use him is Hydra. Now, Lewser hasn't used one of his keys, so I can basically throw a quick test in here. We can see what we're going to use. Let's just throw in a quick test bunch here. We're going to have this. Let's just reset him. We've got decreased defense, weaken. Let's get in a Mikage just for some ally attacking as well, because we want to kill the head as quickly as we can, and we'll throw in a Harima here. We'll just throw in some test runs. He has a massive aura, by the way, of 35% in all battles, so it's kind of insane how much kit these mythical champions really have. Now the goal here is we just want to try and kill the head as much as we can. We don't really have a solution for Torment Head, so we should probably try and kill the Torment Head as quickly as we can. Now luckily this is only normal. I just want to showcase some of the damage here. You could probably use him on higher tiers, but I simply want to showcase him on normal here. There we go, we get the kill out. Great. Okay, so now we can absolutely start wrecking some damage here. Let's just use Harima to reduce that defense. Let's hopefully we get weaken out here. Okay, we didn't. But we can reset. This is what we want to do. Now we can ally attack in this position here. Get some damage going. Extend all the buffs, decrease defense and weaken. Excellent. So what we want to see now is how much damage does his A3 do to a single decapitated head. It is weak affinity. Of course it is. Of course I picked the head that's most weak affinity. That would be typical. Hopefully we don't weak hit. Let's find out. Even if he doesn't weak hit, it will be a bit weaker. But let's find out how much damage is he going to do. 1.8 million. Now you cannot get the excessive damage because you have to kill an enemy. You never kill a Hydra head. But that was 1.8 million damage to a Hydra head. That is a very significant amount of damage here for this. If you look, Harima's doing about 1.2, which is, you know, very strong. We can absolutely just throw out here. Let's see what happens when we can see if we can decapitate 4 heads here. That would be great. So we can throw an AoE out here. Pretty good damage, I would say. It's not terrible. Okay, so we've got some more decapitated heads here. Let's see what we can do to a strong, and not a weak affinity here on this head of Mischief, the squishiest head. 2 million damage. Now, if you had Hex, that's a single target ability. That's 200,000 damage times 3 to all of these decapitated heads. So it's going to be another 600,000 damage AoE should we have had Hex on all this team. I haven't put a Hex champion in here, so it's really difficult to kind of showcase this damage potential. We can run the damage into here again. Let's just speed it up here. Let's have a look at how strong his AoE ability is on this ability. We can just throw some reduce of a defense here, which is great just to help us improve our damage output. Throw our decrease attack, decrease defense, weaken. Okay, how strong is his secondary AoE? This is the interesting one because obviously Hydra will penalize you for AoE damage. You can't reset the cooldowns. You will get turn meter back though, so that's really nice. It means you get more rotations to your abilities. You get your A3 back, your A2. This is also quite a useful thing if you have the fear head. You can get rid of the fear. Even though Hydra heads can't take fear, you can still transfer it away. So it's kind of like a pseudo counter to the torment head. Very good for decreased attack. If you take it from the wrath head, you can get rid of it. It just means that he keeps himself debuff clean, which is really handy. But what we want to test is A2. He is weak affinity to 2 heads. Let's see what kind of damage we do. That's crazy. 1.2 to 1.7 million per head. And there is no hex out. So if you did that to all the hex, you get, I think, 2% on an AoE. It really kind of adds up. This is where the damage can really scale on this ability. So from a Hydra damage potential, because he has so much damage in his abilities now, he's probably a very strong candidate for a good option in your Hydra team, should you want to build it in such a way. Now, this is a very strong build. I'm not denying that. Strong affinity, how much do we do? 2 million damage, right? This is a strong build. So you've got to put it into perspective for your gear. You might not have a 6-star awakened, you might not have that. But I will say, like, we can end the battle here just to see what we've got. 15 million, so crazy. I will say this, the gear that Lewser's put on here is giving him a lot of stats purely because of the ascension that he has put on them, not the gear itself. And this is by no means a negative towards Lewser's gear. I'm trying to say that Lewser's gear could actually be incredibly much more stronger than this. It could be a lot more powerful. He's got what I would call good to average gear. These are all rare pieces mostly. Look, double roll speed. That's not that difficult to acquire. Speed and crit rate. It's not crazy. He's got 1 flat stat here with a resistance. There's no extra crit damage that could be rolled here. Here, for example, he has got a low roll crit damage. Just a single roll here. Yes, it's got attack. It's really good stats in the right place. This one here, great stat choices, but you could see where you can get a lot of benefits. It could be crit damage on this piece. He's got 2 rolls into resistance. This could be improved with a crit damage roll. Crit rate roll potentially is a bit low. It could be 21%, I believe. And the speed here is actually a bit low roll as well. So he has so much more room to grow in this build. We've got a double resistance roll here. That's more stats you could get. So the gear here is apart. The band is probably the strongest one of all these pieces. You know, double attack percent is pretty good. What I'm trying to showcase to you is that the gear itself is not overpowered Kraken gear. The Ascension is where he's getting a lot of his value, because 20 plus 20, that's 40% more attack on a 1663. Those Ascension stats alone are giving him 665 attack. The 2 Ascension stats here are giving him 665 attack. So it's the Ascension stats that are making this gear much stronger than the substat rolls in itself. So, you know, you need to put it into your perspective. When you're looking at this guide, don't take away, oh, well, it's fine, you got Kraken gear. These kind of numbers are producible in high quality compared to everyone else in your account. If you took this Siegfrund the Nephilim into your account, into Hydra, with a 4-star Ascension, it will be very strong. He's got Soul Reap here, for example. You absolutely could take Crushing Rend on this guy and go for true damage on the A3. If we want to build him for Hydra, I would build him Crushing Rend, because that gets him another 31% ignore defense. So you get 31 plus 50, that gives you 71%. Plus he's got lethal, 81%, 91%, 95%. And I think Lewser's area bonuses for Hydra are absolutely insane. I will say this, his Hydra is perfectly maxed out. So he has got another 20%. So he might not need the Crushing Rend as much, but true damage is on the cards potentially. And if you can hit true damage on his ability, on his A3, that's very strong. But there you go, guys. I don't want to make this guide any longer than it already is. We're already half an hour in. Where is Siegfrund the Nephilim really, really strong? It's about his Rage of the Nephilim. It is the best way to consider it is like Sun Wukong on steroids. It doesn't not crit. So the second hit will do so much more damage. He is probably, I would argue, a top 2, top 3 damage dealer in Arena right now, purely because of his ability to just destroy very quickly and recycle his abilities very quickly. He's also got very good tanky base stats as well, which helps a lot. And he's very difficult to simply just one-shot. You know, he will be suffering against Ultimate Death Knight. He will suffer against champions like Rotus because he doesn't double hit on the A1 or on the A2 or the A3. He will struggle into Harima, and he will also struggle into Stone Skin, like every other normal damage dealer. He is also attack based, so you would need to give him some form of attack buff with it. So if you set him up correctly, you will find a lot of success. If you don't set him up, he might just be too squishy. But absolutely a monster. This passive will help keep him alive, and every so often you might discover that he actually has a second form. I will say This should have been the number one change. He didn't really need all this damage. One could argue he does too much damage. That's a whole different conversation, a different topic. But for Hydra, amazing. For wave clearing, amazing. I've seen some people do some absolute crazy stuff in Fire Knight hard. It may even have been Lewser who showcased me a very strong video where a strong team where he basically substituted one of his ally attacks and just went in with Siegfrund, because Siegfrund will one-shot these waves. Siegfrund will absolutely one-shot these waves. Maybe I can showcase it here quickly. I don't want to waste too much of his energy. I have no idea whether this team will survive with just these ally attacks, but let's find out. It's only 20 energy. I'm sure he will be okay. Obviously, we can ally attack here, but I'll just showcase you the difference in the sort of damage of the strength of these waves. We probably can just A2 here. That's fine to weaken them up. So this is the difference in damage. We can absolutely one-shot the waves. 1.7 million. This is the difference between Dragon Waves and Fire Knight. The Dragon Waves are much tankier. The Fire Knight Waves are a lot squishier here. They don't take half as much of... they're not half as tanky, so you can absolutely one-shot them here. We've just absolutely killed him. So hopefully we can just kill them all here with this A2. There we go. We get a reset and we soul reap. You see how quickly you can wave clear with the Siegfrund. It's very, very fast. Now, this team obviously has double nuke. It's got all the power in the world that you could possibly want. Let's try and break these shields. I think he just got a refresh there, which is kind of nuts. So obviously here we can go in with the A3. 528,000 without increased attack, without decreased defense, without weaken. It just goes to show you the value of ignore defense. Now, I'm pretty sure his area bonuses here are going to be quite strong. So that would have been 50% plus a 20%, so 70%. Add in lethal, which is 25%. He's probably dealing close to true damage at this point, which is very strong. But I'd imagine that's what happened here. Now, we could probably go in with the A1 here, just to make sure I don't waste his energy. I don't want to completely waste energy on him. And I'm pretty sure we've got another ally attack here, so we can definitely slow the boss down. Now, I'm going to let the boss take a turn here. Let's see what happens with Siegfried's passive. I've just remembered, as I've been doing this fight, that Siegfried can't die because he's got that passive. Let's see what he can do. Let's just let the boss take a turn. Okay, so nobody died here at the moment because we're just far too tanky. Let me just run this through. I'm going to then see what happens when we're about to die because he's the only one that can obviously die here. Okay, so the boss is going to take a turn now. Hopefully everyone dies. So that kind of stops the passive, but here's the problem. So he's fully healed and everything, which is great. Now we've got 2 turns of block damage. What I was trying to simulate was a scenario where everyone died and that metamorphed him, then you could revive and carry on. That was the concept. So he's kind of like a safety net for your sort of auto farm teams. Because what you have is, for example, if the nuke's 3%, if your ally attack doesn't go in the right position for whatever reason, it gives you some safety barrier. Because even if you try to kill him, he can't die because of his passive, and then he will metamorph. Once he metamorphs, he can revive everyone with block damage for 2 turns, and off you go again. Which is kind of strong. It's really, really strong. But let's just finish this off here. I don't actually want to waste any more of Lewser's time on his account. I really appreciate Lewser for sharing with me the ability for me to showcase this and test this out so I can bring it to you. I obviously don't have Siegfried on my account myself. I wasn't able to do it on that account. So we obviously just bring the newts in now and one-shot it. I would imagine his team does this in like 30 seconds. And I've just taken about 4 minutes off his average runtime. So again, we can bring the A3 in here, do some absolute crazy damage, 351. So you can see there, last time we probably hit Helm Smash, did true damage at 538,000. We didn't this time, so that's why it was a lot lower. Oh, we got the metamorph. There you go. That's what I was trying to showcase here. We actually managed to get a situation where the metamorph happened. So he transforms. Now we have this ability. We can literally just revive everyone back. They all have block damage now, and then we can do a full cleanse. And this is where he could be potentially really good if you have him, but you don't necessarily have a double Newt or Cardiel or all these different champions to really just like give you the ability to defeat this. Now remember, Fire Knight Hard is a mission requirement for Marius. It's the one that probably most people are most stressed or most concerned about, is can they actually beat the Fire Knight Hard on this difficulty. It's still one of the hardest dungeons for a lot of people. We might actually struggle here. What's this going to do? Removes all debuffs, heals all allies, and returns to max HP. Or we can heal everything here with an attack. We probably want to do this one. This is where now I need to try and make sure I actually Don't waste Lewser's energy. But that's the metamorph concept I was trying to talk about. Even if you take a full whack from the thing, you can revive the team back again and go again and keep going. It's very, very strong. It feels like a bit of a Cardiel-esque type support role on the secondary role. There you go, guys. Siegfrund, actually really good for finite heart, really good for clearing waves, great for arena, really strong for Hydra. Is he overpowered? Does he have too much damage? I would suggest that, like I've pretty much said as a standard principle, multiplying multipliers is never good for game balance. So having a situation where the secondary damage will get remultiplied by the first multiplier, it's a bit of a problem, just like it's a problem with Trunda. At least with Wukong, he doesn't use his biggest critical multiplier, which is the crit damage one, and you know, that's a pretty good thing. You can't use him as a Trunda replacement because you can't kill anything in Hydra, so you don't get this surplus damage. But his A1 and his A2 and his A3 and the utility of his A1 makes him a viable Hydra damage dealer, I think, on his base form. So thanks again to Lewser for letting me play test this on his account. I really appreciate it. Let me know in the comments below, guys. How are you finding Siegfrund? How strong do you think he actually is? Have you managed to get some bigger hits than I just showcased there? Are there any areas in the game that you are finding him to be significantly very, very, very powerful that I haven't mentioned here? I'd really love to hear from you. Hopefully they don't nerf the A3. I really don't want to see him get nerfed, but I do think as a coding principle that multiplication happening twice is it's going to be very difficult to balance against other champions. But he is absolutely a top 2, top 3 damage dealer now in arena, and I guess this is where rebalances are really good. Before, a lot of people wouldn't have used Siegfrund. Now, a lot of people will use Siegfrund. So it gives you value to a champion you've already got, which is really good to see. That's why we like to see rebalances. So play him, keep up the rebalances. Let's pick up some of these champions that people would really love to use, but they just don't have the power that they need. So thanks again, guys, for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.